Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Be Like Christ. We are taking a look at Song of Solomon chapter 4 today, and I will put out a parental advisory before we start this chapter. There's some things in this chapter. It's a romantic chapter, pretty much about a wedding night. So, based on what you know about that, maybe this one's going to be for some older ears, or at least be cautious, I guess. I'll put that out there in the beginning. If you would like our PDF, you can download it at tobelikechrist.com. And they're always free out there. So let's get into the chapter. Our first two sections, of course, remain the same. Solomon is the author. And as far as our characters, we have the young man, the groom, who is Solomon himself. And we also have the young woman, who is the bride, who he's going to be admiring in this chapter. And then the daughters of Jerusalem, who we talked about in several chapters past. Now, to our definitions, we've learned a lot about perfuming plants in Song of Solomon, and we're going to learn about another one today. It's the plant calamus. Calamus was a flowering plant that was used to make perfumes, grows in wetland areas. At least that's what I saw on the internet. We're also going to talk about the Tower of David. What is the Tower of David? This was an ancient citadel and a fortress in the old city of Jerusalem. Once again, a relatively short chapter. Song of Solomon's chapters they're certainly not like the book of Luke. We've got 16 verses. I've got the first 11 as our first section. Solomon admires his bride. So we kind of talked about at the end of chapter 3 how the wedding procession was approaching the city of Jerusalem. At least this chapter does seem to be kind of chronological in that it picks up on the wedding night. Solomon admires his bride. So Solomon describes the beauty of his bride, and he uses, once again, a lot of natural analogies. He says that her eyes were like the eyes of doves, her hair like flocks of goats leaping down the mountains, her teeth like white sheep that had just been washed, her lips like a scarlet thread, her cheeks like two halves of a pomegranate, and her breasts like two twin gazelles. Now, there is a non-natural analogy that he uses. I guess the thread is technically not natural, but one other non-natural analogy that he uses is to compare her neck to the Tower of David with shields hung all over it. And, probably not the pickup line that I would use or describe my wife that way, but this was something that was strong and dignified and respected, and so he describes her neck in that way, which I guess in its way is beautiful. After describing his bride's beauty, Solomon talks about going away to the mountain of myrrh and the hill of frankincense until the morning. Now, I don't think he's actually leaving to go to some physical mountain, physical hill. I think this is a poetic way of describing the night that they're going to spend together in a place where they'll be secluded and enveloped in sensory pleasure and sexual delight. Solomon then continues adoring her, telling her that she was flawless, that her lips were like dripping nectar, telling her that she captivated his heart, and describing her love as better than fine wine. So there you have section number 1. Now let's talk about section number 2, the locked garden, verses 12 through 16. Solomon here starts a new analogy, and he carries it forward to the end of the chapter, and really it's going to continue on also into chapter 5. He describes his bride as a locked garden. So this garden that he kind of puts forward pictures in our minds, the garden has been ripening, and now it's at its peak, full of delicious fruits and spices. Its offerings are wonderful and fragrant, and no one else has ever unlocked the gate to enjoy any of these fantastic things. Solomon uses the garden analogy to describe the beauty of his virgin bride, and you can probably see some of the comparisons. Her body had been guarded, locked away from all other men, but now in its maturity, in its ripeness, she offers it to him. And the final words of the chapter belong to the bride. She says, quote, "Let my beloved come to his garden and eat its choicest fruits." David Guzik, in his Enduring Word commentary, I think has a good word on this, and so I've taken a quote out of there. It says, "This is the moment of yielded virginity, where the beloved is invited to enjoy the previously protected and sealed sexuality of the maiden. A line before, the maiden called it my garden. Now it was his garden. Her virginity, her sexuality was protected so that it could be fully given to her beloved." So as we mentioned before in our study, we see here the enjoyment, the pleasure of sexual intimacy, but we also see it in the right context and it preserved for that right context, which is the wedding night. And I want to talk about that more in our application section. I want us to take a moment today just to dwell on the beauty of virginity and the beauty of waiting to surrender that virginity until the right moment, until marriage. And I think this is something that we need to dwell on and meditate on a little bit because many preachers, many churches won't touch this topic for a couple reasons. Number one is because it's kind of uncomfortable to talk about, right? But also they're afraid of offending the people who gave away their virginity too early. But I think that's a mistake. I think it's a mistake especially because the world is trying its absolute hardest to make virginity meaningless. And in a lot of ways, it's succeeding and convincing a lot of young people. So we need to hold this up as a virtue. Young men and women, especially in our day, who reach marriage with the sacred seal of virginity are worthy of our highest praise, and we need to be holding them up as role models. Parents and churches need to find a way to preach Solomon's garden message in all of its beauty to their children and to their young people. And we need to return virginity to its proper place atop the pedestal of superiority compared to its alternative. And we don't need to be shy talking that way or preaching that way. And this is coming from somebody who didn't do it right before marriage. So I'm not just tooting my own horn here. I'm saying that I can still recognize its superiority, even though a lot of people, including myself, get it wrong. The church needs to talk about this beauty like it means something, because it does. So let Solomon's rich analogy of his bride's virginity be instructive to the church and to parents about how we ought to teach and admire this virtue and really hold it up as something special and to be preserved.